Chimp. That is a huge elim for the 2-point swing, as well as the 5-point placement threshold. You can see Zuni's up on the high ground. He boxes him 48 as well, right after. He only has 3 builds, but he says, that's 2 more than I needed. Takes him away. He's going to drop down and connect. Now completely out of builds. Zuni is 2. He goes down, and the positional bases could be in. Everyone else is in the zone. Everyone else is out of mats. Pam is shooting fish in a literal barrel from the high ground. Can Slacks make the wall-to-wall play? He goes for a pickaxe, but Pam just stays in, shoots down, ties the top elims, 97 points.
Pamstou winning the NA East FNCS All-Stars Solo Showdown may have come as a surprise to some, but for me, as someone who was constantly watching him and his trio in FNCS last season, seeing someone who obviously had a good grasp on the game performing well in a solos event was no surprise at all. With a little bit of luck going his way, we saw Pamstou take the day out, edging out the other opponents that he had in the NA East region to take the win, and we're going to break that down for you here today on my channel. So if you go on to like the video, make sure you hit like and subscribe, and let's get into breaking this down. Now, one of the things that I really want to talk about Pamstou was actually his vertical awareness and the fundamentals that came along with that. There were so many zones across NA East that were so vertical and had every player needing to know when they needed to go up, when they needed to go down, and have a good understanding about how they should play around timings with going up and going down. Of course, if it's going up the biggest hill in the game, you don't care about anything else. All you care about is getting up. But he showed the awareness of other timings about when to drop off hills, when to traverse them, when to not do certain things. These kinds of awarenesses and fundamentals were really strong. He has really good emphasis on when he needs to play ahead, when he needs to play to an edge. If he has the mats, obviously he's doing what he can. If he doesn't have the mats, he plays off of tarps with the distinct purpose of finding a refresh. He shows an importance. He shows the true importance of having a plan for when you're in shambles and reacting well to what's in front of you. So having these fundamentals was really important, and what made me realize that he was fundamentally sound was when I saw him playing these vertical zones well, because that's something you tend to only see from the top of the top players, those players who can see his own pull and they immediately click and see, okay, we're going to have to get up 3-4 layers here, and they adjust accordingly. It does not take much to learn how to do it, but it takes a lot to recognize it without flinching, and seeing him doing that made me realize that this guy's the real deal. Another thing that I really enjoyed watching about Pamstou was the way that he reacted to Harpoon being removed. Now, Harpoon being removed mightn't be a big deal to some players, but to some players it really was. A lot of people built their endgame theory around having the Harpoon to be able to get their refreshes without having to get kills. Pamstou, I'm not too sure if he adjusted off of not having the Harpoon after having played with it in trios and solo cash cups, but he played as if he'd never seen a Harpoon in his life, and I think that is really important to note, because what it meant is that he was comfortable getting refreshes through kills. You'll see he actually had 2 ways that he liked to get his refreshes. The first way that I saw was waiting on padders to rotate, then he goes after them after pumping them for about 140 before they pad. Now, this was one of the reasons I wasn't a huge fan of pads being added to begin with. I think that sitting there waiting for someone to go, pumping them in the head for 140 and then chasing them is a pretty cheap tactic to get a refresh, but hey, if it means you're going into first moving with 555, no one's going to complain apart from the guy who it happens to. He did this in game 1 at half-half, and he did it in game 2 of first moving, so showing a consistent trend here is something that I think is really important. And again, it goes to show what I just said earlier, having the fundamentals and the pre-planning to show that you've got a plan for certain scenarios. If you don't have 555 going into half-half and you want to find a refresh, we're going to find it by looking if we can play late on a refresh pad and then chase that kill. So that was the first thing that I saw him do for a refresh tactic. Refresh tactic 2 was what I call shadowing. It's an idea that I've been playing around with for a while that I haven't seemed to find consistency for, but he seemed to find consistency for it twice, finding refreshes in an instant where he's following someone's tarp, essentially shadowing them like I just called it, shadowing their kill, finding it relatively easily, and then moving on with the mats that he finds from that. He plays his refreshes really nicely. He balances having little mats and then recycling tarps with the idea of finding refreshes really nicely. The way that I think of it, or the way that I used to think of it, while Harpoon was in the game, was that you should play around for a Harpoon play. It's particularly having that as a utility item was good, but particularly now that that's been removed, you have to be now thinking about how can I be getting that refresh in the way that's not going to be hurting me, my HP, my materials as much as possible. The way that he went about doing this in a way that was consistent in finding the refreshes through shadowing and going through people's tarps, basically sneaking up on them in that way, was really positive. And then the way he also did it by using the launch pads to his advantage was really consistent as well, finding his refreshes with those two methods 4 out of his 6 games. And basically from there, if you can find refreshes at half or first moving in those 4 out of your 6 games, you're going to have pretty half decent games across those 4 games. So that's essentially what we saw from him in terms of strategy with refreshes and all that. But what I want to have a quick discussion around next is RNG and solos, and how one of his games proved that having a little bit of luck go your way can be the defining moment in one of these tournaments. Now, I want to precursor this discussion about RNG and solos with a huge congratulations to Pamstou. Every congratulation that he is getting is definitely in order. He played fantastic on the day, but I do want to discuss the game for RNG that he had, and how I think it's important to have 12 games across these kinds of events to smooth variants like this out, because what we saw was one of the best RNG solo runs you'll ever see in a tournament. But again, I really want to preface this, I'm not taking anything away from Pamstou's performance. He absolutely deserved to win on the day, and seeing a guy go from 12k earned to over 75k earned now, taking 75k away from this tournament, I couldn't be happier for the guy. So please, I'm not saying this is a disparaging commentary on him or his performance, but it's important to discuss this, because I think when we've got a 6-game format, games like this can be the the swing in the tide, and this I think really was the swing in the tide. So, game 4, what happened was he had a shambles run back zone akin to God. This was one of the best shambles back zone solo runs I think I've seen in a very, very long time, particularly in a big tournament like this. He had 1 refresh after 30 full seconds of 0 mat back zone play. So what I'm meaning by that is he had 0 materials. All he was trying to do was find a kill on a straggler to be able to build around him to give himself protection. He had 0 protection, 0 builds for 30 full seconds and did not get shot at once. Now, that is pretty ridiculous. That's pretty crazy. There's some good RNG there. No one looking back at him. Other people distracted by other things. To add to that, after he gets in on someone, hits him for a 189, gets his refresh, he goes from 8th place to 3rd. So for the 30-second run, the 30 full second run back zone, he goes from 21st place to 8th place, which is a crazy amount of placement points. But after finding that 1 refresh, using all of the mats from that 1 refresh, he has some medkits left, and he has the bandage cannon left, or the new chug cannon left, and a 0 mat healing play that I do genuinely think is not replicable from game to game, happened that took him from 8th until 3rd, and it was a full 1 minute and 30 seconds long. Now, when you add that together, that is 2 full minutes of 0 material play, back zone, that I truly do not think is replicable from game to game. And I keep on saying that, but I think that is the most important point to note, because if you can't do that from game to game, it is not something that can be game planned for. It is something that is happening because RNG is technically falling in your favor. And again, I'm not speaking bad on him about this at all. He played the situation beautifully. His movement, his medkit timing was really nice, but he never carried medkits. He picked up the bandy cannon out of RNG. And this is generally the kind of variance that will never work every time. It is the kind of variance you need to smooth out with a 12-game format. To put this in context, the one refresh he got that took him from 8th to 3rd, and that 30-second run with no materials on backzone beforehand that took him from 21st to 8th, added up to gain him an extra 15 points, which was then again what took him over the top. So, it's one of those things. Do we have to go to Epic and say we can't run a 12-game format again? Or is it one of those things we say, that's what happens in 6-game formats. You've got to say Pamstou played the best on the day, so well done. And I think we've got to go with the latter. I'm really happy for Pamstou. I wish him all the best for next season. Keep an eye out for him because I know him and W Carry are going to do some awesome things. I think they're one of the best up-and-coming trios in the world, not just NA East. I really think they're on the come up. So I'll see you next time, guys. Peace.